Good morning and happy St. Patrick's Day. It's the morning of March 17th, 2022. And I want to talk about a junior explorer that I followed for about 18 months now, in which I'm a pretty large shareholder in. By the way, this is Robert Sin at Goldfinger on CEO.ca, at CEO Technician on Twitter. The company is Bitterroot Resources. I call it BTT for short. I think they could maybe do a name change at some point in the future, or at least put in some, nickel um, in the company name. But anyway, BTT on the TSX-V. I think this is a really interesting time for BTT, and that's why I'm making this video. Not something I do very often, but I think it's important. I think it's an exciting story um, that's worth a little more delving into, a little more analysis and an understanding of what exactly they're doing at the LM project in Michigan. So they have three projects actually. You can see on their website, you can see all in the US, two gold projects in the best gold mining state in the country. And then in Michigan, um, near where the only operating nickel mine in the US is located. You can see London Mining's mine in the Blue Star, and LM, which is BTT's project. It's an exploration project, not a mine, is about 30 miles west of Eagle, which is the only operating nickel mine in the US of any real merit. So that in itself is really intriguing. I mean, if you think about what's going on in the nickel market recently and how much nickel the world is going to need over the next 2-3 decades, who knows? It's going to be a lot to power all these electric vehicle batteries, right? And the fact that nickel is used in a lot of other industries as well, including steel, right? So obviously, without this crazy short squeeze we've had in the past couple of weeks, you can see that it's still in a very strong uptrend. Uh, it used to be that $10 a pound price of nickel was a big deal. Now we're looking at 15 or maybe even $20 a pound as being a realistic price longer term for nickel. So anyway, the economics of making a new nickel discovery in the US are pretty damn compelling, right? So LM, they're targeting nickel, copper, and platinum group metals in massive and semi-massive sulfides. So the Eagle mine is conduit hosted semi-massive and massive sulfides. So these are very high grade ore bodies. They're generally pretty small, could be 2, 3, 4 million tons total. But when you're talking about grades like 3% nickel, 3% copper, a gram of gold and PGMs tossed in there for a nice icing on the cake sweetener, you're still making a lot of money, even though these are probably going to be underground mines, right? Like Eagle and Eagle East. So the BTT deck goes through a lot of the big picture stuff for nickel, talks about the Eagle mine, the region, and then we get into it. And this is starts where it starts to get really interesting is when we look at Eagle East. So they found Eagle first. So this was Rio Tinto exploring in the 1990s and early 2000s. They found this one first, obviously, because it's much closer to surface. Very nice ore body, very nice and compact and relatively near surface. And then they found the other ore body at Eagle East. And you can see that what happened was they started drilling around here and they had to keep stepping out to the east until they finally found it. They followed this conduit, you can see in purple. They followed this conduit um, down, plunge until they found it. And This is about 900 meters depth, but a very nice ore body with very high grade semi-massive and massive sulfides. Notice the host rock. Notice the host rock in both of these ore bodies. Okay, so that becomes relevant later on when we look at BTT's latest news release. So this is a quick rundown of where they've drilled sulfides, all different grades. So some holes have been 3% sulfides, 10% sulfides, 35% sulfides. They've even had a couple of small sniffs of massive sulfides. But you can see the grades are pretty damn good, especially in this massive sulfide, interval, 0.8 meters of basically 5% nickel. That's pretty damn good. But obviously, they're just getting little snips, small clips of these high grade intervals. A lot of indications that they're getting closer, but they certainly haven't found the concentration of semi-massive and massive sulfides that you would need to have an economic ore body. So BTT put out this news release on March 9th, and I believe it was a highly significant one. They detailed basically 4 holes that they've drilled recently. So there's an ongoing, drill program. Actually, they're on hole 26 as we speak. And then the company will take a break for the spring breakup. So that will be about 2 months, and then they'll be back in May to resume drilling. But this news release was significant for a couple of reasons. Prior to this drill program, they had drilled 21 holes, and you can see that they had hit sulfides in basically 5 of them. So 5 for 21. In this program, they told us about 4 holes, and they were 4 for 4. They hit sulfides in all 4. And it may be subtle, but for me, it's notable that the intervals are getting a little bit wider. And particularly in hole 25, there's three different intervals of sulfides. Now this is trace, so maybe this is like 3% total sulfides in this 48 meter interval. This is probably 10% sulfides, and maybe this is, I don't know, 8% or something. I'm just guessing here. Obviously, I'm not a geo. I don't work for the company, although I'm a very large shareholder. And I'm inferring based upon everything I know about the company and about this project, right? We don't know the grades yet, right? So we can try to infer based upon previous holes what the grades might be, right? Might be, but we don't know until we get the assay. So, maybe this 3 meters is somewhere around 0.7 or 0.8%. Nickel, 0.8% copper, 0.4 gold and platinum group metals, right? But we don't know. That would be a guess until we get the assays back from the lab. But the good news is we will get assays back probably in April. And going back to hole 25, they gave us a bit more of a description about this. So they spent basically 3 paragraphs talking about hole 25. And the first thing to notice, drilled 50 meters east of hole 22. This hole has generated 2 significant pieces of information. It contains, mineralized class of peridotite. Peridotite. Where did we see that before? Peridotite. The host rock at both Eagle and Eagle East. Peridotite. That's really important. Also, this is a 5.1 meter core interval with these mineralized class up to, a half a foot, 6 to 8 inches across. That's not small. Blebby sulfides, and they are pretty clear that they hold nickel, that they hold copper and nickel. These class are suspended in a matrix of olivine gabbronorite, they are interpreted as having been transported by a younger pulse of magma, which eroded the clast from an undiscovered mineralized body located deeper in the conduit. So that's really important. Okay, they're not making this up. Okay, this is how these things work. This is the science of these conduit hosted massive sulfides. So just like at Eagle East, they're basically inferring there's a mineralized body somewhere down plunge, deeper in the conduit, and there was a later event. So these were deposited, the massive and semi-massive sulfides were deposited at some point long, long, long ago. And then more recently, still millions of years ago, but more recently, there was another pulse of magma strong enough that it thrust some of this nickel and copper, just simply put, these clasts up closer to surface, farther up into the conduit. But because it's just a little piece, little chunks breaking off, it's blebby sulfides. It's not massive sulfides. It's not as concentrated as it would be in the area where the intrusion flattens out, like at Eagle East. So this is very, very interesting. And then we go deeper into the news release. You can see what a rip up clast of massive sulfides could look like at LM. That's a very, very nice piece of core. And you can see the tenor, right? So when we get 100% sulfides, massive sulfides, this is what it is likely to grade at LM. That is world class by any stretch of the imagination. So blebby sulfides, here we go, hold 10. So we already know what that looks like and about what it could grade. Okay, we don't know exactly what hold 25 grades are going to be, but we can infer. So here's hole 25. This is actually the farthest east they have drilled at LM. So the intervals of sulfides are getting wider and more numerous as they go east. Southeast, hole 26 is underway. So this is the final hole of this phase of drilling. It is underway. I don't know where they're at exactly, but I don't think they're at the target depth yet. And this is by far the farthest east. This is like 50 meters east of hole 25. And yeah, you can see. So this is where this is how BTT is interpreting the intrusion. The conduit is plunging. And so vertical hole 26, straight down the throat of this thing. And we should get a lot more information, And if we go back to Rio Tinto and how they found Eagle East, so you can see this was a news release from sometime in the 2000s. I don't even think it has a date on it. But anyway, this is when they were trying to find this sometime around 2006 or 2007. Yeah, so they were saying, so this is probably 2008. And you can see there's Eagle. There's the fully defined ore body, all the holes. And here's Eagle East. So they've had some really nice sniffs. You can see the holes, the arrows to the holes over here, the intervals and the grades. So for example, hole 130, they drilled 21 meters of 0.9% copper, 1% nickel. So that was farther up here, maybe to a depth of about 300, 350 meters. But they could tell they were clipping the edge of the conduit. They could tell when the holes were, when they were exiting into different rocks and they were out of this, intrusion. which is obviously shaded. The intrusion at Eagle East is really big, much bigger than at Eagle. The ore body at Eagle is big though, or relatively big. And they kept following it down, plunged to the east. And you could see that as they got deeper, maybe 500 meters, 600 meters, for example, hole 44, 92.8 meters of 0.51% copper, 0.69% nickel. So they were hitting wider, intervals of sulfides as they got closer to the actual ore body, the actual concentration of massive sulfides. So you can see they're following it down. Here, they weren't even, they hadn't found this turn yet. They were still just drilling along here, right? And then they finally were just like, okay, let's just drill vertical holes stepping out to the east until we find it. And boom, 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 and they just hit it, right? But 900 meters depth, But what is, a couple million tons grading 3.7% nickel, 3% copper, and 2.5 grams per ton PGMs and gold worth in 2022 or 2025 or whenever, this thing would actually go into production, right? So that's up to you to figure out. And it's very possible that, they find some massive sulfides here somewhere down plunge, and maybe it's only 100,000 tons. Maybe it's only 100,000 tons and it's at, 600 meters, and it might not even be worth building a whole underground mine to get to it, right? So we don't know. We don't know. It could be 2 million tons. It could be 3 million tons. It could be 50,000 tons. Who knows? This is all speculation at this point. This is exploration. There is a lot we don't know right now. But we have the analogs. We have two deposits, very, very profitable mines. Lundin Mining is throwing off $500 million a year of free cash flow at current, metal prices at Eagle. $500 million a year. You can see 2021 cash cost negative $1.24 per pound nickel, because the copper, the gold, and the PGMs are so valuable that they get the nickel for less than free, right? So this is extremely profitable ore body. So this is what we're hunting at LM. And in my opinion, the news the company gave us on March 9th was the best news we have received to date about this project. And then obviously we have the two gold projects in the best mining jurisdiction in North America for gold mining in our back pocket, basically for free. The market's not giving us any credit for these two, but worth learning about on your own. Obviously, I don't have enough time to go through all of this today, but the main event is at LM. This is where the company is focused, and this is where a very exciting hole, number 26, is being drilled right now. Do your own due diligence, please. Do not take anything I say as fact. This is my analysis. This is my opinion. I'm a large shareholder of the company, and also I have been compensated for marketing services in the past. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful St. Patrick's Day.